A broken Navy SEAL came home to a house on a frozen hill, believing the war had already taken everything that mattered. Then, in the middle of a brutal snowstorm, a wounded German shepherd appeared at his door and refused to leave. What Coulter did not know was that this dog was not just lost, and that night was not an accident. Buried in silence, old pain, and the snow outside his home was a secret powerful enough to change everything he believed about the past. As the storm closed in, the dog began leading him toward a truth someone had killed to keep hidden. This is a story about invisible scars, loyalty that feels heaven-sent, and the kind of miracle that arrives when a soul is ready to give up. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from or share how this story makes you feel, and please like and subscribe to support more stories like this. The hill did not welcome anyone. It stood alone against the Montana sky, a frozen spine of earth where the wind never seemed to rest. Snow did not fall there, it lingered, drifted, gathered in quiet defiance, as if time itself had slowed down just to watch the world forget this place. And at the very top, like a stubborn memory that refused to fade, stood a small wooden house. Inside it, Coulter Hayes existed more than he lived. At 38, he carried himself with the rigid posture of a man who had once belonged to something precise and unforgiving. He stood a little over 6 feet tall, his body lean and tightly built, not sculpted for show, but shaped by function, by survival. There was no softness in him, not in the way he moved, not in the way he stood still. His face was clean-shaven, exposing a sharp, square jaw and high cheekbones that gave him a permanently carved expression, like stone worn by years of wind. His skin was pale beneath the cold, but weathered, touched by the harsh northern air. His dark brown hair was cut short in a military style, though slightly longer than regulation now, as if discipline had loosened its grip just enough to let neglect creep in. But it was his eyes that told the truth. Gray-blue, distant, always watching something that was not there. Coulter stood by the window, a glass of cheap bourbon resting loosely in his hand. Outside, the storm had begun its slow, relentless build. Snow swirled in thick currents, the wind howling low and steady like a warning whispered through clenched teeth. He barely noticed it. Storms had rules. Storms made sense. Silence did not. He lifted the glass, swallowed, and felt the burn slide down his throat. It did not help anymore. It had not for a long time. But rituals were easier than decisions, and this was one he still remembered how to follow. Behind him, the house creaked softly, settling into the cold. The furniture was sparse, just a worn chair, a table, a mattress on the floor. No decorations, no photographs, no reminders. He had learned that memories did not need objects. They arrived on their own, always at night, always uninvited. Coulter closed his eyes, just for a second, and it was enough. The snow outside became dust. The wind became pressure. The silence shattered into distant echoes, boots, shouting, something breaking apart faster than the mind could process. He opened his eyes sharply, breath catching. Gone. Just the hill again. Just the storm. Just him. Get a grip, he muttered, his voice rough from disuse. He set the glass down harder than necessary and turned away from the window. The room tilted slightly, not from the alcohol, but from the weight of something that had no name, something that pressed against his chest like it was trying to push him out of his own body. He moved toward the mattress, every step deliberate, controlled. He did everything like that now, controlled. Because if he stopped, he did not finish the thought. He never did. The storm deepened. Hours passed, though time had little meaning on the hill. The wind grew louder, pressing against the walls like a living thing. Snow piled against the door, the windows frosting over until the outside world disappeared entirely. Coulter lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. Sleep would not come. It never did when the wind sounded like this. His right hand rested over his chest, fingers twitching occasionally, as if remembering motions his mind refused to acknowledge. Somewhere between waking and drifting, his breathing slowed, but never fully settled. And then a sound. Soft. Out of place. Coulter's eyes snapped open. There it was again. A faint, uneven scraping from the door. He did not move immediately. Instead, his body went still, completely still, the way it had been trained to do long before this hill, before this house, before everything that came after. The sound came again. A weak thud. Then silence. Coulter exhaled slowly and pushed himself up, every movement controlled, measured. He did not reach for a weapon. There was none anymore. But his body still remembered the instinct. Step. Pause. Listen. Step. The wind roared outside, masking everything else. He reached the door and stood there for a moment, hand hovering over the handle. Then he opened it. The cold hit him first, sharp, immediate, biting through fabric and skin alike. Snow swirled violently across the porch. And there, at the edge of the doorway, was a dog. A German shepherd, black and tan, its coat thick but clumped with snow and ice. It was large, easily between 4 and 5 years old, its build lean but powerful beneath exhaustion. One ear twitched weakly. Its amber eyes, sharp even through fatigue, locked onto Coulter with a strange, steady focus. The dog did not bark, did not growl. It just stood there, waiting. Coulter frowned, his gaze shifting past it. Down the hill, barely visible through the storm, something dark lay twisted against the slope. A vehicle. He narrowed his eyes. A pickup truck, overturned. The realization settled in quietly. Accident. Recent. The dog took a step forward and staggered. Its legs trembled, barely holding its weight. A shallow cut marked its shoulder, not deep, but enough to bleed through the fur. It had been running for a while. Coulter looked back at it. The dog did not look away, did not beg, did not whine. Just watched him, breathing slow, controlled, like it was waiting for a command. Something about that bothered him. The dog suddenly turned its head, not toward the storm, not toward the wreck below, but toward the inside of the house. Its posture shifted, subtle, but unmistakable, alert. Not fear, not confusion. Recognition. Then, slowly, it stepped past Coulter and crossed the threshold on its own, as if it already knew it belonged there. Coulter stiffened. Hey, but the word died halfway out. The dog did not wander. It did not sniff around like a stray. Instead, it moved with quiet precision, scanning the room, corners, shadows, doorways. Its movements efficient, practiced. It checked the perimeter, like it had done it 100 times before. Coulter watched in silence. Something tightened in his chest. Not panic, not quite recognition, but something close. The dog finished its slow sweep of the room, then turned and sat near the door, facing outward, guarding. Not the house. Him. Coulter let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "You are not a stray," he said quietly. The dog did not respond, did not need to. Coulter ran a hand over his face, suddenly aware of the cold creeping into his bones. He stepped back inside, closing the door against the storm. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Coulter walked to the kitchen, grabbed an old metal bowl, and filled it with water. He hesitated before setting out food, watching the dog carefully. "Do not make this a habit," he muttered, more to himself than anything else. The dog approached slowly, not desperate, not frantic. It lowered its head, sniffed, then looked up at Coulter again. Waiting. Coulter frowned. "You are kidding me." He crouched, took a small piece of food in his hand, and held it out. Only then did the dog eat. Slowly, deliberately. Coulter sat back on his heels, studying it. "Yeah," he said under his breath, "definitely not a stray." Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, something had shifted. Not enough to change anything. Not yet, but enough to be noticed. Coulter stood and walked back toward the window, glancing out at the buried truck below. Whoever had been driving that vehicle, they were not coming up the hill tonight. He turned back toward the dog. It had returned to its position by the door. Watching, waiting, unmoving. Like it had made a decision. Coulter shook his head lightly, almost amused despite himself. "Storm will pass," he said. "Morning comes. You go back where you belong." The dog did not react, did not blink, just stayed there, as if it had already decided otherwise. That night, Coulter did not sleep. But for the first time in a long time, he was not alone in the silence. Morning did not arrive gently on the hill. It pushed its way through the storm like a reluctant guest, pale and cold, bleeding faint light through a sky still heavy with snow. The wind had quieted, but it had not left. It lingered in low murmurs, circling the house as if waiting for something to happen. Inside, Coulter Hayes sat at the small table, staring at nothing. The glass in front of him was empty. For once, he had not refilled it. That alone should have meant something. But he did not let himself think about it. Across the room, the dog had not moved much since the night before. Ridge sat near the door, exactly where he had chosen his position. His body was still, but not relaxed. Every few seconds, his ears flicked, reacting to sounds Coulter could not hear. His amber eyes shifted subtly, tracking something beyond the walls. Watching. Always watching. Coulter leaned back in his chair, studying him. "You ever blink?" he muttered. No response. Of course. He stood, stretching slightly, joints stiff from a night without sleep. His movements were automatic, quiet, efficient. Old habits that never left, even when everything else had. He grabbed the metal bowl again, filled it with water, and set it down. Then food. This time he did not crouch. He waited. Ridge approached, slow and measured. The dog lowered his head toward the bowl, paused, then stepped back. His eyes lifted to Coulter. Waiting. Coulter exhaled sharply through his nose. "Yeah, thought so." He crouched, picked up a piece of food, and held it out. Only then did Ridge step forward and eat. No rush, no desperation, just controlled motion. Coulter watched carefully. "You were trained," he said quietly. "Not a guess. A conclusion." Ridge finished the piece, then stepped back again, maintaining distance but never losing awareness. Coulter leaned his forearms on his knees. "Military?" he asked, half to himself. The dog's ears twitched. That was enough of an answer. The hours passed slowly. The storm outside weakened into a steady snowfall, the kind that blanketed everything in silence. From the window, the overturned truck was now half buried beneath white drifts. Coulter had not gone down to check it, not yet. Something in him resisted. Or maybe he already knew what he would find. Instead, he stayed inside. And for the first time in months, he spoke. Not much, just fragments, words that came out rough, unused. You do not like bowls. Pause. Yeah, me neither. Ridge did not react the way a normal dog would. No wagging tail, no shifting excitement. But he listened. There was no mistaking that. Coulter leaned back against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the floor. You know what is funny, he said, voice low, almost distant. They said it gets easier. His gaze drifted somewhere far beyond the room. Time, they said. Time fixes things. A faint smile touched his lips, but there was no warmth in it. Time just gives you more room to remember. Ridge shifted slightly. Not toward him, but closer. Subtle. Measured. Coulter noticed. Of course he did. He noticed everything. The sound came mid-afternoon. A vehicle. Distant at first. Then closer. Coulter froze. Ridge did not bark. Did not move. But something in him changed. The stillness sharpened. His body angled slightly toward the door. Coulter stood immediately, instincts snapping into place before thought could interfere. He moved to the window, wiping away frost with the back of his hand. A truck. Not the one from last night. This one upright. Approaching slowly through the snow. Coulter's jaw tightened. Guess that answers that, he murmured. He stepped toward the door, Ridge already rising to his feet behind him. When Coulter opened it, the cold air rushed in again, but lighter now, less violent. The truck came to a stop near the base of the hill. A woman stepped out. She moved with purpose, boots crunching through the snow as she made her way upward. She was not dressed like someone lost. She was prepared for this terrain. When she reached the porch, she pulled off her gloves. Mara Ellison looked like someone who had learned to live outdoors rather than visit it. She was in her mid-30s, tall enough to stand eye to eye with most men. Her frame lean but strong from physical work. Her skin carried a natural pale tone, touched by wind and cold, not fragile but resilient. Strands of light brown hair escaped from beneath a knit cap, tied loosely at the back. Her eyes were a muted green, sharp but steady, the kind that assessed before reacting. She did not smile, not right away. Her gaze moved past Coulter, directly to the dog, and something in her expression shifted. There you are, she said softly. Ridge did not move, but he did not retreat either. Mara exhaled slowly, relief passing through her features before she looked back at Coulter. I am guessing he came up here during the storm. Her voice was calm, controlled, but there was an undercurrent of exhaustion, like she had not slept either. Coulter nodded once. Truck yours. She glanced down the hill. Yeah. Hit black ice about half a mile back. He was in a transport crate in the bed. Her jaw tightened slightly. He broke out. Coulter looked at Ridge again. Does not seem like the type to stay put. Mara let out a short breath that might have been a humorless laugh. No, she said. He is not. She stepped closer, but not too close. Careful. Measured. You kept him inside. Coulter shrugged lightly. He showed up. That was all the explanation he offered. Mara studied him for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough. She crouched slightly, not lowering herself fully, just enough to change her posture. Ridge, she said gently. The dog's ears flicked, but he did not go to her. That was new. Mara's expression shifted again. Not surprise, something quieter. More complicated. He used to work military contracts, she said, standing again, addressing Coulter now. Multi-purpose canine. Detection. Tracking. High-threat environments. Coulter's gaze did not leave the dog. Figured. Mara folded her arms loosely against the cold. They retired him after an incident. She paused. Could not assign him anymore. Too aggressive. Too unpredictable. Ridge shifted his weight slightly. Not aggression, not now, something else. Coulter tilted his head. He does not look unpredictable. Mara followed his gaze. He is not reacting the way he should, she said quietly. Coulter glanced at her. What does that mean? She hesitated, then answered honestly. It means he chose you. As if triggered by something unseen, Ridge suddenly turned away from both of them and walked toward the back of the house. Not casually, not curiously, direct, focused. He stopped near a closed interior door, the one Coulter never opened. Ridge lowered his head and sat. Still. Waiting. Not for food. Not for a command. For something buried deeper than either of them had spoken aloud. Coulter's chest tightened. He had not gone near that door in months. Mara noticed the shift in him immediately. You did not train him to do that, she said. It was not a question. Coulter did not answer, because he did not have one. The moment passed, but not completely. Somewhere beneath the silence, something had been disturbed. Mara cleared her throat lightly. I can take him back, she said. There is a facility about 40 miles out. Temporary holding. Coulter looked at Ridge. The dog had not moved. Still watching that door. Still waiting. He going to make it there? Coulter asked. Mara hesitated, then chose her words carefully. They will try. That was not the same as yes. Coulter nodded slowly. Storm is not done, he said. Roads will freeze again tonight. Mara glanced at the sky. She knew he was right. A long pause settled between them. Then she looked back at him. Can you keep him here? She asked. Just for a couple days. Coulter did not answer immediately. He looked at the dog, then at the door Ridge had chosen, then back out at the endless white. Finally, he exhaled. Yeah, he said. Mara nodded once. All right. She stepped back, pulling her gloves on. I will come back once the road's clear. She paused, studying him one last time. You might want to keep an eye on him, she added. He does not just react to danger. Coulter's brow furrowed slightly. What else? Mara held his gaze. He remembers things, she said. Then she turned and walked back down the hill. The truck drove away slowly, disappearing into the white. Silence returned, but it felt different now, heavier. Coulter closed the door. Inside, the house seemed smaller, not because of the walls, because of what now lived inside them. He looked toward the back room. Ridge was still there, waiting. Coulter took a slow step forward, then stopped. For the first time in a long time, he was not afraid of the storm outside. He was afraid of what was waiting inside. The house felt different after Mara left. Not quieter. Quieter had been easy. This was something else. It was the kind of silence that pressed inward, like the walls had shifted just slightly closer without anyone noticing. The storm had softened into a steady fall of snow, but the weight of it lingered, settling into the wood, into the floorboards, into the space between breaths. Coulter Hayes stood in the middle of the room, unmoving. Across from him, Ridge had not returned to the door. The dog was no longer guarding the outside. he had chosen something else. Coulter followed his gaze. The back room, the one Coulter had not opened in months. He did not think about why. He did not allow himself that. Instead, he took a slow step forward, then another. Each movement felt heavier than it should have, like he was walking through something thicker than air. Ridge did not move to lead him. The dog simply watched, body still, eyes sharp, waiting. Not commanding, not urging, just waiting. Coulter reached the door. His hand hovered over the handle. For a moment, the past pressed in. Dust, heat, pressure. A voice shouting something he could not quite hear. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, and turned the handle. The room had not changed. That was the worst part. It looked exactly the same as the day he stopped coming in. The air inside was colder, untouched. A narrow bed pushed against the wall, a wooden crate in the corner, and near the back, a duffel bag, olive drab, worn, forgotten. Coulter stepped inside slowly. Behind him, Ridge followed without hesitation. The dog moved differently in here, slower, more deliberate. His nose lowered, scanning the air, then the floor, then the space around the bag. His movements were controlled, but there was tension in them now. A fine edge, like something just beneath the surface, was beginning to stir. Coulter stopped a few feet away, his eyes fixed on the duffel. "Evan," he said quietly. The name did not echo. It settled. The bag belonged to Evan Mercer, 37 when he died, tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of man who smiled easily, even when there was no reason to. His hair had always been too long for regulation, light brown with a streak of sun in it. His beard never fully shaved clean, always leaving a shadow across his jaw that made him look older than he was. Evan had been the kind of man people followed without realizing it, not because he ordered them to, because he made things feel possible, until the day everything was not. Coulter swallowed, his throat dry. "That is where you ended up," he murmured. The bag had been shipped back with his personal effects. Not everything went through official inventory. There were always things that slipped through, or were allowed to. Coulter had never opened it. Not once. It had felt like opening a door that would not close again. Behind him, Ridge let out a low exhale. Coulter turned slightly. The dog had moved closer, now standing beside the bag. Not touching it, but focused. Completely focused. His nose hovered just above the fabric, inhaling slowly, deliberately. His ears angled forward, catching something beyond sound. Coulter watched carefully. "That what you are after?" he asked. Ridge did not look at him, but his body tightened. That was answer enough. Coulter crouched slowly. His movements were steady, but inside, something had already begun to unravel. He reached for the zipper, paused, then pulled. The sound was louder than it should have been. Inside, the contents were exactly as he remembered. Clothes, folded, clean, untouched by time. A spare jacket, a rolled shirt, boot socks. Normal things. That made it worse. Coulter sifted through them slowly. Nothing. Ridge shifted. Not impatient. Not restless. Focused. His nose moved along the inner seam of the bag, tracing a line Coulter had never noticed before. Coulter leaned closer. "Yeah," he murmured. "I see it. The bottom lining, slightly raised. Not much. Just enough." Coulter reached into the bag, pressing against the fabric. It did not give. There was something beneath it. He stood, crossed the room, and opened a drawer. From inside, he pulled a folding knife, old, worn, still sharp. When he turned back, Ridge had not moved, still watching, still waiting. Coulter knelt again. He slid the blade carefully under the seam. Cut, slow, controlled. The fabric peeled back with a soft tear, and underneath, a compartment. Hidden, deliberate. Coulter's breath slowed. "Damn it, Evan," he whispered. Inside the compartment were 3 items. A small, sealed data device, a fragment of metal, warped and scorched, and a thin notebook. Coulter reached for the metal first. It was heavier than it looked. Cold, even in the room. He turned it over in his hand. The surface was burned, edges twisted, but there was no mistaking the pattern. He had seen it before. Too many times. HMX, he said quietly. Military-grade explosive. Not something you found by accident. Behind him, Ridge let out a low, almost inaudible sound. Not a growl. Recognition. The dog's nose hovered near the fragment, confirming what Coulter already knew. Coulter set it down carefully, then picked up the notebook. The cover was worn, stained, used. He opened it. The pages inside were filled with tight handwriting. Evans. Coulter read slowly. Dates, coordinates, short notes. Then something different. The tone shifted. Less routine. More urgent. Supply inconsistencies. Residue does not match insurgent materials. Internal leak suspected. Coulter's jaw tightened. He flipped the page. More entries. More tension. Tracking shipments off book. Same signature across multiple incidents. Not random. Coulter stopped. His hand stilled on the page. He did not need to read the next line, but he did anyway. If this is what I think it is, we are not being attacked. A pause. Then, we are being sold. The words settled into the room like a second silence. Coulter closed the notebook slowly. For a moment he did not move, did not think, did not breathe. Then a shift. Something inside him aligned. Not relief, not anger. Something colder. Clearer. The kind of clarity that did not leave room for doubt. Evan had not died because of bad luck. He had not died because of a mistake. He had died because he had seen something, and someone had made sure he did not say it out loud. Coulter reached for the data device. Small, unmarked. He turned it over in his hand. "Let us see what you left me," he murmured. He stood, moved to the table, and set it down beside the old laptop. The machine hummed as it powered on. Slow, outdated, but functional. Ridge followed. Not close enough to interfere. Close enough to watch. Always watching. Coulter inserted the device. The screen flickered. Then a prompt. Encrypted. Of course. Coulter leaned back slightly. "You always did like puzzles," he muttered. He rested his hands on the table, thinking. Evan had never been careless. Whatever he left behind, he had meant for someone to find it. Someone specific. Coulter exhaled slowly, then began typing. Names, dates, call signs, nothing. Denied. He frowned, paused, then tried something else. A word, a memory. Something Evan once joked about after a long night neither of them had slept. Coulter typed it in. Pressed enter. The screen went still. For a fraction of a second. Nothing. Then it opened. Files, dozens, images, reports, evidence. Coulter leaned forward, eyes scanning rapidly. Shipments, coordinates, names, connections, all tied together, all leading to the same conclusion. This was not just a leak. It was a system. Organized, protected, hidden. And Evan had found it. That was why he died. Not because he failed, because he refused to look away. Coulter sat back slowly. The room felt colder now. Not from the weather, from the truth. Behind him, Ridge shifted slightly. The dog's focus had changed. Not on the bag, not on the metal, on something else. Coulter noticed. Of course he did. He followed the dog's gaze. The laptop, the screen, then a faint flicker, almost invisible, at the bottom corner. Coulter leaned closer. What is that? A small icon. Active, transmitting. His expression hardened instantly. Son of a... He reached for the keyboard, fingers moving fast. Too late. The signal had already gone out. Whatever system Evan had accessed, it was not dormant. It had been waiting, watching. Just like something else in this house, Coulter closed the laptop slowly, very slowly. Behind him, Ridge stood, still, alert, not afraid, ready. Coulter exhaled once, long, controlled. Well, he said quietly, they know now. The wind outside picked up again. Not a storm, not yet. But something was coming, and for the first time in a long time, Coulter Hayes was not wondering how to survive it. He was wondering who needed to answer for it. The signal had gone out. That was the only thing that mattered now. Coulter Hayes stood by the window, the laptop closed behind him, the air inside the house colder than before. Outside, the snowfall had thickened again, not violent like the night before, but steady, suffocating, like the sky had decided to bury everything slowly instead of all at once. His eyes scanned the slope below. Nothing moved, not yet. Behind him, Ridge had not relaxed. The dog stood near the center of the room, no longer focused on the objects they had uncovered. His attention had shifted outward again, ears rotating subtly, catching distant vibrations carried through wind and snow. Coulter did not need to ask. He trusted that instinct, more than his own. He grabbed his jacket, pulling it on with practiced efficiency, then reached for the old watch strapped around his wrist. The scratched glass caught a faint glint of gray daylight. Time had started moving again. That was dangerous. He crossed the room and picked up the notebook, slipping it into an inner pocket. The metal fragment followed. The data device stayed on the table. Too risky to carry blind. He turned to Ridge. "You hear something?" he asked. The dog did not look at him, but his body angled slightly toward the hill. That was enough. Coulter stepped outside. The cold wrapped around him immediately, sharp and invasive. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he moved toward the edge of the porch. And there it was, at the bottom of the hill. A vehicle. Not Mara's. Black. Engine off. Parked deliberately out of sight of the main path. Coulter's jaw tightened. They did not waste time. Ridge stepped beside him now, silent, controlled. The dog's posture had changed entirely. No hesitation, no uncertainty. This was something he knew. Coulter glanced down at him. "Yeah," he murmured. "I see it too." He stepped back inside, closed the door, locked it, then moved quickly. The calm was gone now, replaced by something sharper, cleaner. He pulled an old duffel from under the table, opening it with one smooth motion. Inside were items he had not touched in years. Not weapons, not exactly, but tools. things that belonged to a version of him he had tried to leave behind. He did not hesitate. Not anymore. The phone sat on the counter. Old. Basic. No smart features. He picked it up, hesitated for half a second, then dialed a number he had not called in years. It rang twice, 3 times. Then a click. A voice came through, low, cautious. Wrong number. Coulter exhaled slowly. "I need a structural assessment," he said. A pause. Then the voice changed. Subtle, but real. "You are a long way from anything worth fixing, Hayes." Coulter allowed the smallest shift in his posture. Still breathing, he said, "That is debatable." The man on the other end was Rowan Pike, 42 years old, once Navy intelligence, now something else. Rowan had always looked like a man who did not belong anywhere permanent. Thin, slightly hunched, with sharp angles where most people had softness. His dark hair had gone uneven over the years, streaks of gray cutting through it without pattern. His face was narrow, clean-shaven, but lined, not from age but from too many nights spent staring at screens instead of sleeping. His eyes were the worst part. Too sharp, too aware. The kind of eyes that trusted nothing, not even themselves. Coulter had pulled him out of a burning vehicle once. Rowan never forgot things like that. "What did you find?" Rowan asked quietly. Coulter looked toward the window again. "The kind of thing that gets people buried." Another pause. Longer this time. "Then you opened it," Rowan said. "Not a question." Coulter did not answer. He did not need to. Rowan exhaled slowly on the other end. "Yeah," he muttered. "That would do it." "You know what it is?" "I know what it smells like," Rowan said. "And I know who cleans up when it leaks." Coulter leaned against the counter. "Say it." Rowan did not hesitate this time. "Private military," he said. "Off-book logistics. Weapons that do not exist on paper." Coulter's jaw tightened. "They operate here. They operate everywhere," Rowan replied. "But yeah, there is movement up north. Quiet. Controlled." Coulter glanced at Ridge. The dog had not moved from his position. Watching. Always watching. "They are already here," Coulter said. Silence. Then. "How many?" Rowan asked. "One vehicle. That you can see." Coulter's grip tightened slightly around the phone. Rowan continued. "You need to assume they know exactly what was accessed, which means you are not a coincidence anymore." Coulter nodded once, though Rowan could not see it. "Thought so." Rowan's voice lowered. "Listen carefully. You do not engage. You do not get curious. You stay inside, you wait it out." Coulter looked at the hill, at the vehicle, at the quiet. "No," he said. Rowan did not argue immediately. That was how he operated. He calculated first. Then he chose. "You were never good at that part," Rowan muttered. "No," Coulter agreed. "I was not." Another pause. Then Rowan spoke again. "If you move, you do it quiet. No patterns, no trails." Coulter ended the call. Not because he had nothing left to say, because he already knew what he was going to do. The house felt smaller now, not safer, just contained. Coulter moved toward the door again. Ridge stepped in front of him. Not blocking, not aggressive, just present. Coulter looked down. "You want to come?" Ridge held his gaze. Still. focused, then turned, walked toward the side of the house. Not the hill, not the vehicle. Another direction. Coulter frowned slightly. Not that way, he said. Ridge stopped, turned his head. Not arguing. Waiting. Then he moved again. This time slower. Checking. Listening. Coulter hesitated, then followed. They reached the edge of the tree line behind the house. The world changed there. The wind softened. The snow grew thicker. Sound became different. Muted. Ridge moved ahead slightly, nose low, body tense but controlled. Then he stopped, completely. His head lifted, not sniffing, not tracking, listening. Coulter stepped beside him. What is it? Ridge did not move, did not blink. His eyes fixed on a patch of untouched snow. Perfect, undisturbed. And yet Coulter felt it, before he saw it. A subtle shift in the surface, too straight, too deliberate. He crouched slowly, brushed the snow aside. Underneath, a faint indentation. Not fresh, but not old either. A mark, artificial, deliberate, hidden. Coulter's breath slowed. They have been here longer than today, he said quietly. Ridge did not react. He already knew. Coulter stood. The forest stretched ahead. Quiet. Still. But no longer empty. He turned back toward the house. The hill behind him. The vehicle below. Everything connected now. Not random. Not coincidence, a pattern. And he had stepped into it. Coulter exhaled slowly. All right, he said under his breath. Ridge stepped beside him. Ready. Not as a pet, not as something that followed, as something that understood. Coulter looked down at the dog. You do not just find things, do you? Ridge's ears flicked. That was all the answer he needed. Coulter turned back toward the house, toward the fight he had not chosen, but no longer avoided. The snow continued to fall, soft, endless, and somewhere beyond the quiet someone was watching. But for the first time in years, Coulter Hayes was not trying to disappear. He was beginning to look back. The forest did not forgive mistakes. It hid them. Buried them beneath layers of silence and snow until even memory struggled to find them again. Coulter Hayes moved through it carefully, each step deliberate, his boots pressing into powder that swallowed sound. Behind him, the hill disappeared. The house vanished into white distance, leaving only trees and shadow and something older than both. Ridge moved ahead, not far, never far. The German shepherd's body flowed through the snow with quiet precision, his black and tan coat blending into the fractured light between branches. His head stayed low, nose working, but not frantically. Controlled, focused, working. Coulter watched him. You have done this before, he said under his breath. Ridge did not look back, did not need to. Coulter followed. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. Wind could not reach fully beneath the canopy. Snow fell softer here, settling instead of drifting. Even the air felt thicker, like it carried something unspoken between the trees. Coulter's senses sharpened, not from fear, from familiarity. This was terrain that asked questions without speaking, and punished the wrong answers. Ridge slowed, his body lowered slightly, not stopping, adjusting. Coulter noticed immediately. Something changed, he murmured. Ridge angled left. Coulter followed without hesitation. It was not obvious at first. Nothing ever was. Just a slight break in the natural pattern. A line where snow did not fall the same way. A cluster of branches bent too evenly. Coulter crouched, brushing away a thin layer of powder. Underneath fabric, dark, synthetic. His eyes narrowed. You have got to be kidding me. He pulled back more snow. The outline revealed itself slowly. A tarp, heavy duty, stretched low against the ground, camouflaged, deliberate. Coulter's pulse slowed. Not faster, slower, clearer. He moved around it, scanning the perimeter. No obvious tracks, no disturbance, just the tarp, waiting. He looked at Ridge. The dog had stopped completely now, standing still. But something was wrong. The tension in his body was different. Not controlled, not clean. It was trembling. Ridge stepped closer to the tarp, his nose lowered. He inhaled once. Then his entire body stiffened. A low sound escaped his throat. Not a growl. Something broken. Something pulled from a place deeper than instinct. Coulter froze. Ridge. The dog stepped back suddenly, then forward again, then back. His breathing changed. Faster. Uneven. His ears flattened. His eyes widened, not with aggression, but with something closer to panic. Coulter felt it hit him like a wave. Not through logic, through recognition. Hey, he said, softer now. Stay with me. Ridge did not hear him, not fully. His gaze locked onto the tarp, but not what was in front of him. Something else, something remembered. For a split second, Ridge lunged forward, not at Coulter, not at the tarp, at nothing, at air. His jaws snapped hard enough to echo through the trees. Then he recoiled, stumbling backward, breath sharp, eyes searching for something that was not there. Coulter's chest tightened. He knew that look. He had seen it in mirrors. Ridge was not reacting to the present. He was reliving something. Coulter moved slowly, carefully. He did not reach for the dog, did not try to restrain him. He knew better. Instead, he lowered himself, knees into the snow, making himself smaller, less threat, less pressure. Easy, he said quietly. You are not there anymore. Ridge's breathing remained uneven, but his eyes flicked. Just for a second, toward Coulter. That was enough. Coulter kept his voice steady. No gunfire, he said. No heat. No blast. A pause. Ridge's body trembled, but less now. Just snow, Coulter continued. Just trees. The dog's ears twitched. Recognition. Not of words, of tone, of rhythm. Slowly, very slowly, Ridge's posture shifted. The tension did not disappear, but it loosened. Just enough. He stepped back, then sat. Not fully relaxed, but present again. Coulter exhaled quietly. Yeah, he murmured. I get it. He stayed there for a moment longer, letting the silence settle. Then he stood, turned back to the tarp. This time he moved with certainty. He grabbed the edge, pulled. The covering peeled back with resistance, snow sliding off in soft cascades. Underneath crates, 3 of them, dark, reinforced, military grade. Coulter knelt beside one, ran his fingers along the side. Cold metal, markings. Faint, but visible. His jaw tightened. Not off the books enough, he muttered. He opened one carefully. Inside weapons. Not civilian. Not improvised. Clean. Maintained. Ready. Coulter closed the crate slowly. His mind worked fast now. Faster than it had in years. This was not storage. This was staging. Temporary. Hidden. Close to something. Or someone. He looked around. The forest. The hill. The house, too close, he said quietly. Ridge stood again. But not calm. Not fully. His body remained tight, controlled only by effort. Coulter looked at him. You still feel it, he said. Not a question. Ridge's ears flicked. Coulter nodded slowly. Yeah. He understood now. This was not just about what they found. It was about what it meant. Ridge was not broken. He was remembering. And Coulter had spent years trying to forget. He looked back at the crates, at the weapons, at the truth laid bare beneath snow. I did not fail you, he said under his breath. The words felt strange, heavy, but right. I was set up. The forest did not answer, but something inside him shifted, just slightly, just enough. The sound came sharp, close, too close. A snap. Branch. Coulter turned instantly. Ridge was already moving. Not panicked this time. Focused. Alert. Coulter's voice dropped. Down. Ridge lowered immediately. Silent. Controlled. Coulter stepped behind the nearest tree, body angled, breathing slowed. Another sound. Footsteps. More than one. Distant, but approaching. Coulter's mind calculated. Distance. Angles. Time. They had been found. Not by chance, by design. He looked at Ridge. The dog's eyes were clear now, locked in, ready. Coulter exhaled once. All right, he whispered. The calm returned. Not the empty calm from before. The real one. The kind that came before movement, before decisions, before survival mattered more than anything else. The forest closed in around them, snow falling, footsteps nearing, and for the first time since he came back to this hill, Coulter Hayes was no longer hiding from the Passa. He was standing inside it. The first shot never came. That was what made it worse. Coulter Hayes stood pressed against the cold bark of a pine, breath slow, controlled, eyes scanning through the drifting white. Snow had thickened again, not falling now but moving sideways, carried by rising wind. Visibility collapsed into fragments of shapes and shadows. Somewhere out there they were moving. He could feel it. Not here. Feel. Beside him, Ridge stayed low, body aligned with Coulter's leg, muscles coiled but contained. The dog's earlier fracture was gone now. No panic, no hesitation, just focus. Coulter leaned slightly, catching a glimpse between trees. Movement. Fast. Low. Contact, he whispered. No time to wait. No time to plan. The forest shifted from silence to motion in a heartbeat. Coulter moved. They ran. Not blindly. Not wildly. Ridge took point, cutting through snowdrifts with instinct sharpened by something deeper than training. He did not follow paths. He created them. Coulter followed, boots slipping, lungs burning, every step heavier than the last. Behind them, voices. Distant. Closing. The wind swallowed direction, turning sound into distortion. But one thing was clear: they were being hunted. Coulter veered right. Ridge corrected him immediately, cutting across his path, forcing a different direction. Coulter did not argue. He trusted the dog more than the terrain. Branches snapped underfoot. Snow broke unevenly. The forest blurred into motion and instinct. Then a sharp crack. Coulter's body jerked. Pain exploded across his side. Not a bullet. A fall. His boot had caught on something buried beneath the snow. He hit hard. Air left his lungs in a violent rush. For a second, the world went silent. Ridge turned instantly. No hesitation. No confusion. The dog moved back to him, placing himself between Coulter and the direction of pursuit. His stance lowered, shoulders squared, head forward. A shield. Coulter groaned, pushing himself up. "Not now," he muttered through clenched teeth. His side burned. His leg felt unstable. Not broken, but close enough. Ridge did not move. He did not retreat. He stood there holding the line. For a brief second, Coulter saw it clearly. Ridge was not waiting for him to stand. He was forcing him to. The dog turned his head slightly, eyes locking onto Coulter with something that was not instinct. It was expectation. "Not protect me. Move." Coulter's breath hitched, and something inside him snapped back into place. "Yeah," Coulter said, voice rough. "Yeah, I hear you." He pushed himself up. Pain flared. He ignored it. Ridge stepped forward immediately. Not checking, not waiting, leading. Coulter followed. Because now he understood. Ridge was not saving him. He was driving him forward. The forest opened slightly ahead. A shallow drop. Then a ridgeline. Beyond that, wind. Stronger. Louder. The storm was rising again. Good. Coulter's lips pressed into a thin line. "That works," he muttered. Visibility dropped further as they pushed through the ridge. Behind them, the voices grew louder, closer. The hunters were gaining. Coulter reached into his pocket, pulled out the small comm device he had not used in years. He flipped it on. Static. Then a voice. "You took your time." "Rowan." Coulter exhaled sharply. "Tell me you see them." A pause. "Then I see everything that is trying to see you," Rowan replied. "They are running thermal sweeps. You are lit up like a signal flare." Coulter cursed under his breath. "Options." Rowan's tone shifted. Colder. Faster. "Northwest. There is interference near your position. Old relay lines buried under the ridge. It will scramble their feed if you get close enough." Coulter looked at Ridge. The dog had already angled that direction. "Of course." "Already moving," Coulter said. Rowan did not sound surprised. "You always did trust the wrong things." Coulter almost smiled. "Not this time." The wind hit them harder as they moved. Snow became a wall, white, blinding. Sound vanished again. Just breath. Footsteps. Heartbeat. Ridge did not slow, did not hesitate. He cut through the storm like it was not there. Coulter stumbled once, then again. Each step demanded more. Each breath burned deeper. He felt it creeping in. That old weight. That voice, the one that told him to stop, to lie down, to let it end. Ridge stopped suddenly. Coulter nearly collided with him. What the dog turned, blocked him. Not gently, firm, grounded. Coulter met his gaze, and in that moment he understood. Not words, not commands, something simpler. You do not get to quit. Coulter let out a harsh breath. Yeah. He stepped around Ridge, kept moving. The ground changed beneath their feet. Harder, packed. Coulter recognized it immediately. Line is here, he muttered. He dropped to one knee, brushing away snow. Beneath it, metal, old infrastructure, just like Rowan said. Ridge moved in tight circles now, restless, but not panicked, focused. Coulter reached into his jacket, pulled out the small ignition pack he had taken from the cache. He looked back once, toward the direction of pursuit. Shadows moved in the storm. Too close now. All right, he said quietly. He set the charge. Quick, clean, no hesitation. Then stood. Time to move. They did not get far. The explosion hit behind them, low and controlled, but enough. The ground shook, the storm twisted with the shockwave, and the signal vanished. The hunters faltered, not stopped, but slowed. That was enough. Coulter pushed forward, breath ragged now, body running on something deeper than strength. Ahead, lights, faint, through the storm. Vehicles, not black, different, approaching, fast. Sirens cut through the wind, distant, then louder. Rowan's voice came through again. They are pulling back, he said. You just made too much noise. Coulter did not stop. Good. Another voice broke through the static. Female, sharp, focused. Coulter, this is Mara. Stay where you are. We have got local units inbound. Coulter blinked. Mara. Of course she would not stay out of it. He exhaled once. Copy. Ridge slowed, then stopped. Not because he had to, because they had reached it. The edge. The point where running ended. Coulter stood beside him, chest heaving, blood seeping slowly beneath his jacket. The storm still raged, but something had shifted. The hunt was over, for now. Coulter looked down at Ridge. The dog stood tall, steady, eyes clear. No fear, no hesitation, just presence. Coulter let out a quiet breath. You did not save me, he said. Ridge's ears flicked. Coulter nodded slowly. You showed me where I was supposed to go. Not away, forward, always forward. The sirens grew louder. Lights cut through the white. And for the first time since the war, Coulter Hayes understood something simple. He had not been lost. He had been waiting. The storm did not end all at once. It unraveled, slowly, like something that had held too tight for too long and finally decided to let go. By morning, the sky above the hill had broken open into pale blue, thin sunlight spilling across the frozen world below. Snow still covered everything, deep and untouched in places, but the weight of it had changed. It no longer pressed down. It reflected. Coulter Hayes stood on the porch of the house, one hand resting against the wooden frame, the other wrapped in fresh bandaging beneath his sleeve. His shoulder still throbbed in a slow, steady rhythm, a reminder that healing was not a clean process. It never had been. Behind him, the house felt different, not because it had changed, because he had. The broken loops of silence and alcohol were gone now, not erased, not forgotten, but no longer in control. The empty glass still sat on the table inside, but it had not been touched. Not since that night. Not since everything shifted. A low hum of engines echoed faintly in the distance. Coulter's gaze drifted down the hill. Vehicles, multiple, not hidden, not careful, official. They had come in waves. Local sheriff units first, cautious but determined. Then federal vehicles, darker, quieter, carrying men and women who moved with purpose and restraint. Among them was Deputy Aaron Vance, a man in his late 40s with a thick build and a face carved by years of small-town law enforcement. His beard was trimmed but uneven, streaked with gray, his eyes steady and patient. He spoke slowly, not because he was unsure, but because he measured every word before letting it go. He had approached Coulter without suspicion, but not without awareness. "You have had a rough couple days," Vance had said, his voice calm, boots crunching through the snow as he stopped a few feet away. Coulter had simply nodded. Vance did not push. Men like him knew when silence said more than questions ever could. Further down the hill, near the edge of the forest, activity moved with controlled urgency. Crates were uncovered, cataloged, loaded. Men in tactical jackets spoke into radios, their words clipped, efficient. Evidence. Not rumors, not suspicion. Proof. Rowan's voice had come through the comm one last time earlier that morning. "They are pulling everything apart," he said. "This is not just a cleanup, it is exposure." Coulter had leaned against the porch railing. "About time." A pause. Then Rowan's voice softened, just slightly. "You did more than you think." Coulter had not answered. He did not need to. Mara arrived just after sunrise. Her truck moved slower this time, careful on the icy incline. When she stepped out, her posture held less urgency than before, but her eyes still scanned the area instinctively. She spotted Coulter immediately, walked toward him, not rushing, not hesitating. She had changed too, not in appearance but in the way she carried herself around him. Less guarded, more certain. "You look worse than yesterday," she said, stopping at the bottom of the porch. Coulter allowed the faintest hint of a smile. "Feel better than I did." Mara nodded, studying him for a moment longer. Then her gaze shifted to Ridge. The German shepherd lay near the steps, his body stretched out against the wooden boards, soaking in what little warmth the sunlight offered. His coat, once dulled by exhaustion and stress, had begun to regain its sheen. The black and tan pattern stood sharper now, defined, alive. His ears still moved, always. But not with the same edge, not the same constant tension. When Mara approached, Ridge lifted his head, watched her, then rested it back down. Acceptance. Quiet. Mara exhaled softly. "That is new," she said. Coulter followed her gaze. "Yeah." She stepped closer, crouching slightly, but not reaching out. "He is not scanning every movement anymore." Coulter nodded. "He does not have to." Mara looked at him again. There was something unspoken in that moment. Not about the dog, about the man standing in front of her. Ridge suddenly stood, not tense, not alarmed. He moved past both of them, padding across the porch and down into the snow. Coulter frowned slightly. "What is it?" Ridge did not answer. He walked a short distance into the open space beyond the house, then stopped, turned, and looked back. Not alert, not commanding, waiting, inviting. Coulter felt something shift in his chest. Not urgency, not fear. Something lighter, something he had not felt in a long time. He stepped off the porch, followed. The snow beneath his boots crunched differently now. Not heavy, not suffocating, just present. Mara watched from behind, not interrupting, not questioning. Coulter walked out into the open. The hill stretched wide beneath him, the forest line distant, the sky above brighter than it had been in months. Ridge stood a few yards ahead, still waiting. Coulter bent slightly, reaching down. His hand closed around a small piece of wood, half buried beneath the snow. Smooth, light. He turned it in his hand, then looked at Ridge. The dog's ears lifted slightly. A flicker of something. Anticipation. Coulter let out a quiet breath, then threw it. The branch cut through the cold air, disappearing briefly into the bright distance before landing somewhere beyond sight. Ridge did not hesitate. He moved, fast. But not like before. Not like a weapon. Like something alive. Free. His body stretched into motion, powerful and fluid, snow kicking up behind him as he ran. Not chasing. Playing. Coulter stood still, watching. His chest rose. Fell. Slower now, easier. Behind him, Mara stepped closer, her voice softer than before. He chose you, you know. Coulter did not turn. I think, he said quietly. We found each other. Mara did not argue. The investigations continued for weeks. Names surfaced. Companies collapsed. Men who had hidden behind contracts and shadows were dragged into the light. Not with spectacle, but with certainty. Evan Mercer's name was among them. Cleared. Restored. Not as a casualty, but as someone who had seen the truth and refused to turn away from it. Coulter stood alone when he heard it confirmed. No ceremony, no speech. Just a quiet acknowledgement. That was enough. The house changed slowly. Not rebuilt, restored. Windows cleared. Light allowed in. The door no longer stayed closed all day. Footprints appeared more often in the snow leading in and out. Signs of life. Small things. Important things. Ridge adjusted. Not instantly. Not completely. There were still moments. Still echoes. But they passed. Faster each time. Softer. He no longer paced through the night. No longer guarded every shadow. But he still watched. Always watched. Just differently now. Not searching for threats. Understanding the world around him. Coulter stood on the hill again as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in pale gold and soft blue. The wind still moved across the land. Still cold. Still present. But it did not cut the same way anymore. It passed. Instead of lingering. Ridge returned. The branch clutched lightly between his jaws. His tail moved in a slow, steady rhythm, not frantic, not forced, content. Coulter reached down, taking the branch. Their eyes met. No commands, no orders, just understanding. Coulter straightened, looking out across the horizon. I am not done, he said quietly. Not to the dog. Not to anyone else, to himself. And for the first time, it did not sound like a burden. It sounded like a beginning. The wind moved again, but it carried something different now. Not silence, not weight. Something closer to peace. In a quiet corner of a snow-covered hill, a man once believed his life had already ended. Not in body, but in spirit. He carried wounds no one could see, and silence had become his only companion. But sometimes, grace does not arrive as a miracle we recognize. Sometimes, it comes quietly, on four legs, refusing to leave. What happened to Coulter was not luck. It was not coincidence. It was something deeper. When everything in him had given up, something greater had not given up on him. God did not send a sign written in the sky. He sent a loyal soul who would stand beside him, push him forward, and lead him back to truth. That is how faith often works. Not loud, not obvious, but undeniable. There are moments in life when we feel lost, when the weight of our past feels too heavy, when we begin to believe that we are beyond saving. But no matter how far we fall, God still sees us. He still reaches for us. Sometimes through people, sometimes through unexpected bonds, sometimes through a quiet presence that refuses to leave when the world turns away. You may not realize it, but there may already be something or someone in your life sent to guide you back, to remind you that you are not alone, and that your story is not finished. Healing does not mean the pain disappears. It means you no longer run from it. It means you stand, even when it hurts, and you take one step forward, then another, and somehow, that becomes enough. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it with someone who might need it. Leave a comment and tell us where you are watching from, and what part of this story stayed with you the most. And if you believe in stories of hope, redemption, and second chances, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next journey. May God watch over you, guide your path, and bring light into the places that feel darkest. May you find strength when you feel weak, peace when your heart is restless, and a reason to keep going, even when the road ahead is uncertain.